Let your breath slow down and push aside the noisy chatter of cheap entertainment information out there. We are about to step into a darker room where the sorcerers of the modern world are operating one of the darkest forms of black magic, the alchemy of debt. Society teaches you that debt is a financial mistake or a tool of leverage for life, but they also forget to tell you that debt is the oxygen of this entire system. If debt disappears, modern Western civilization will collapse within a single breath. You do not live in a world that has debt. You are living inside debt. Today's episode will be an autopsy of the nature of illusion, where numbers are turned into chains and promises are turned into absolute power. Welcome to Inner Shadow, where there are truths that society doesn't want you to know. A covenant with the void. Imagine a medieval alchemist sitting in a laboratory trying to turn lead into gold. He failed because he tried to change matter. Modern alchemists on Wall Street or in London are far smarter. They don't change matter. They change perception. They don't turn lead into gold. They turn zero into assets. The first brutal truth you must face: most of the money in this world does not exist in physical form. It is debt. When you hold a US dollar bill, you are actually holding an IOU of the US government. In 1971, an event permanently changed humanity's fate. The US president at the time, Richard Nixon, announced an end to exchanging dollars for gold. That was the moment currency officially detached from material reality. Money was no longer gold. Money was now belief. And what is that belief built on? On the future ability of billions of people to repay debt. This is where the alchemy begins. When money is no longer limited by the amount of gold in the ground, those who control the printing press can create it without limit. But for money to have value, it must be anchored to something. That something is your labor. Every time a new unit of money is printed out of the void, it is a promise that in the future, someone, maybe you or your children, will have to work to guarantee its value. You are living in an economy built on empty promises, where debt is the raw material and your time is the smelter. To understand how sophisticated this alchemy is, we have to look at the trap called the fractional reserve system. This is where the real magic happens, and also where your freedom is chopped into pieces. Observe a major bank in New York. When a man walks in and borrows $1 million to buy a mansion, where do you think the bank gets that $1 million from the deposits of other savers? No, that is a deadly naivety. At the moment, the man signs the loan contract. The bank simply types the number 1,000 into his account on a computer, and boom, $1 million is created out of nothing. It did not exist before. It was not taken from anyone. It was born from the borrower's signature itself. This is the pinnacle of alchemy, turning a promise to repay into circulating money. The bank does not lend you its money. It makes you print money for it through your own credibility. Then it collects interest from the money you will earn later based on the money it just created. Now multiply that number by millions of times with billions of people across the world. Every mortgage, every credit card swipe, every government bond issuance is another eruption of debt money into the system. More debt means more money, but there is a mind-bending logic inside this alchemy. Banks create the principal, but they do not create the money needed to pay the interest. If the total principal in circulation is $100 and everyone owes the bank that $100 plus $5 in interest, where does the $5 come from? It does not exist in the system. So what happens? To get money to pay interest on old debts, the system is forced to create new, larger debts. This is a global game of musical chairs. For the system not to collapse, debt must grow forever. And that is why US public debt, or Western public debt, is always at record highs and never truly intends to go down. They cannot reduce debt, because reducing debt means pulling oxygen out of the lungs of the economy, the invisible time-grinding machine. Why do they want you in debt? Why, from the moment you leave school until the moment you close your eyes, does the system always try to push you into a spiral of borrowing? The answer lies in the nature of control. Debt is not just a number. Debt is a tool for behavioral control. A person with no debt is dangerous to the system because he has choices. He can quit his job. He can resist. He can live a life outside the control radius of corporations. But a person who owes money for a house, money for a car, and credit card debt is an obedient debtor. The word mortgage in Old French means a pledge until death. When you sign a 30-year home loan, you are not just buying a house, you are selling the best 30 years of your life to the bank. Every morning you wake up even exhausted, even hating your job. You still have to get out of bed and go to work. Sometimes it's not because you love the job, but because the debt monster in your bank account needs to be fed every morning. Debt turns your biological time into someone else's finances. Look at the glamorous great cities, London, Paris, New York, San Francisco. What were those magnificent buildings built with debt? And who maintains them? Millions of people running every day, draining their nervous and physical energy to serve interest rate numbers. The alchemy of debt has succeeded in turning humans into living batteries for the economic machine. You no longer produce to serve your own needs. You produce to repay debts for things you consumed before you even earned the money. You are living in a state of borrowing from the future to cover an empty present. The tide rises again. The trap for those who come later is often explained as production costs increased or supply chain disruptions, right? Those are surface-level explanations for the crowd. The true nature of inflation is the inevitable consequence of debt alchemy. When central banks and commercial banks create too much debt money out of nothing, the amount of money in the system far exceeds the amount of real goods and services. By the law of supply and demand, the value of each unit of money falls. But observe the continent effect, one of the darkest blind spots of finance. When new money is created, those closest to the source of money, the big banks, the financial oligarchs, large business owners, receive that money first. They use that high-value money to buy assets such as real estate and stocks before prices have time to rise. By the time that money trickles down into your pocket, the people at the bottom prices have already surged. You are the last to receive the money, but the first to pay the new prices. Inflation is a form of wealth transfer from the poor to the rich without guns or laws. It is an invisible tax on your savings and your trust. The system needs inflation. Why? Because inflation reduces the real value of debt. If the US government owes $38,000 billion, it does not want to repay that debt with high-value dollars. It wants to print more money, devalue the dollar, and make the debt lighter. But the price of that lighter debt is your bowl of noodles doubling in price and your parents' lifetime savings sometimes buying only half as much as before. You see in this alchemy, the creator of debt always wins and the saver always loses. The system punishes the disciplined and rewards the debt-speculating gambler, the digital trap, and the end of privacy. We are moving into a new stage of alchemy central bank digital money. If paper debt is a chain, digital debt is a glass cage with GPS. In the world of digital debt, every unit of money you spend and every debt you carry will be tracked in real time. The system will not only know how much you owe, it will know what you use that borrowed money for. If you behave in ways that do not align with the system's standards, they can freeze your account or raise your debt interest rate with a single line of code. This is the completion of the control matrix. Debt will no longer be an economic agreement. It becomes a tool of social standardization. In Western countries, credit scores have already played this role. You don't have a good credit score, you can't rent a home, can't buy a car, might not even get a good job. You are forced to join the debt game to be recognized as a useful citizen. Now the alchemy has turned an abstract concept like reputation into a currency that can be manipulated. They force you to borrow to prove you can repay, then use that to allow you to borrow even more. It is an endless loop of dependency, and every decade the system needs a sacrifice to purge excessive debt and restructure power. We call that a crisis. Look at the 2008 subprime debt crisis in the United States. It was a masterpiece of dark alchemy. Banks turned junk debts loans to people who could not repay into complex financial instruments and labeled them safe. When the bubble burst, millions of people lost their homes and their jobs. But look at who got rescued: the banks that were too big to fail. The government used taxpayers' money, meaning more debt borrowed from the future to save the very people who created the crisis. And the result? After the crisis, the big banks became even bigger, and public debt became even more enormous. Crisis is not a failure of the system, it is part of its operating process. It is like a forest fire that clears out dead leaves, so the old giant trees' financial empires have more space to expand. In every crisis, real assets, land, resources, factories are transferred from the hands of debtors to the hands of those who control the money flow. You think you are investing in the stock market or real estate? No. You are gambling in a casino where the house can change the rules and print more chips whenever it wants. Look out at the world. We see cities blazing with lights, shiny electric cars, and holy AI technologies. Many people take that as proof of the success of the current economic model. But look a little deeper beneath the surface. That prosperity is built on a mountain of debt towering into the sky. We are spending the Earth's resources and the labor of future generations to maintain an illusion of endless growth, to sustain the mirage. Western financial capitalism has turned debt into a new religion, where central banks are temples, economists are priests, and GDP growth is the supreme god. People pray for cheap interest rates so they can borrow more, buy more, and fill the emptiness in their souls with material goods purchased with unreal money. Prosperity is a survival trap. It makes us weak and dependent. Imagine if tomorrow the banking system shuts down and the numbers on computers disappear. What do you have left? Can you provide for yourself? What skills do you have to survive without a credit card? The alchemy of debt has stripped away human independent survival capacity, turning us into creatures that can only exist inside the financial system's glass cage. The rules of freedom inside the matrix. So what is the solution? Should you stand up and call to overthrow central banks? The answer is no. That only leads to chaos. Chaos the system will use to tighten control even more. The solution lies in personal decentralization. You must learn how to escape the debt matrix within your own mind and actions. Remember the rules of the awakened in this alchemy. First, be extremely cautious with consumer debt. Consumer debt, credit cards, borrowing to buy personal items, is the most toxic kind of debt. It is alchemy that turns your impatience into bank profit. If you can't buy it with cash, you can't afford to own it. Break this first chain, and when you are not in debt, you begin to have the voice of a free person. Second, invest in real capability instead of unreal numbers. In a financial crisis, the numbers on a screen can fluctuate, can disappear. But your skills, your health, and real relationships do not. Make yourself someone of value that the system is forced to need, rather than a screw that can be easily replaced in a factory. Third, understand the real value of assets. Learn to distinguish between assets, things that create value or preserve value, and liabilities, things that take money out of your pocket and depreciate over time. Don't be deceived by the glamour of luxury items bought with debt. A small home owned without debt carries far more freedom value than a dazzling mansion tied to a 30-year slave contract. Fourth, escape dependence on a single source. Never let your life depend entirely on a salary from a corporation that itself is drowning in debt. Create independent income streams, even small ones outside the system's direct control. Fifth, always keep a safe distance from the system. Use the system's tools. Banks, the internet, technology, but never let them own you. Let them be means, not ends. Always have an escape plan financially and spiritually. The alchemy of debt is a grand chess game in which the pieces don't know they're being played. It turns greed into motivation, fear into chains, and ignorance into power. You cannot change how much money will be printed or how big banks will manipulate markets, but you can change your position on the board. You can choose to become awake, understanding the rules of money and debt, so you are not swept away by the system's tides. Remember, money is debt. Debt is time, and time is your life. Do not let any alchemist turn your precious life into soulless numbers on their balance sheet. The world out there will keep spinning in its drunken debt frenzy. Skyscrapers will continue to rise on empty promises. But you listening to today's podcast have already planted a seed of awakening. True freedom is not in owning a lot of money. It is in not letting anyone own you through debt. Step outside, look at the advertisements, inviting you to borrow the glittering credit cards and smile at them. Because you have seen the strings, and when you see the strings, you have begun to no longer be a puppet.